Hello, my name is Daniel, and this is my story. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, a place where everybody seemed to know everybody else, but nobody really knew me. I was the quiet kid, the one who spent more time in his head than out in the world. My childhood wasn't violent in the ways people usually expect to hear in these kinds of interviews. I wasn't beaten every night. I wasn't abandoned on the street. But I was invisible, ignored by a father who worked 3 jobs and drank away the little time he had, and by a mother who slipped deeper and deeper into her own depression. Invisibility hurts just as much as abuse. When you're a kid and no one really looks at you, you start to believe you don't exist. That's when I found my first refuge, a hand-me-down computer my uncle left in the garage. It was old, cracked on the side, and the monitor buzzed like a dying bee, but to me it was magic. The first time I powered it on, the screen filled with green letters and a blinking cursor waiting for me to tell it what to do. For the first time in my life, something was listening. At first, I used it like any curious kid, playing with DOS commands, breaking the system, reinstalling it, trying again, but soon it became an obsession. Computers didn't judge me, didn't ignore me, didn't ask me to be someone else. Every line of code I learned made me feel less invisible. I spent nights teaching myself, scavenging manuals, printing out pages from the school library. By the time I was 12, I could do things with that machine no one in my town could even imagine. But curiosity is never innocent forever. When I first dialed into a bulletin board system, I realized there were other people out there like me. Lonely kids, angry teenagers, curious minds hidden in bedrooms across the world. Some of them were harmless explorers, some of them were predators waiting to pull you deeper. I was both thrilled and terrified. For the first time, I felt like I belonged to a community, even if we were all hiding behind fake names and anonymous handles. The first time I broke into something I wasn't supposed to, it wasn't even intentional. I found a hole in my school's grading system. One wrong click, and suddenly I could see everyone's report cards, passwords, attendance logs. I didn't change anything. I just stared at the screen, realizing I had stepped into a place I was never supposed to be. At night, I couldn't sleep. Part of me was scared, but another part was electrified. For once, I wasn't powerless. Looking back, I think that was the moment the hacker in me was born. Not because I wanted to steal, but because I wanted to matter. Because in a world that ignored me, the machine obeyed me. The code listened. And through the network, people who had never seen my face still respected my skill. I didn't know it yet, but that thrill, that hunger for power and belonging, was going to take me down a path I couldn't easily escape. By the time I was 14, the screen wasn't just a machine anymore. It was my doorway into another life. At school, I was still the quiet kid in the back row, the one nobody invited to parties, the one who sat alone at lunch. But online, I wasn't Daniel. I was Zero Signal. That was my handle, my mask, my armor. Behind it, I wasn't invisible. I was respected. I found my way into IRC channels where real hackers talked in coded slang, showing off exploits like street kids bragging about stolen cars. At first, I just watched. But one night, someone dropped a line of code into the chat, an exploit that opened a backdoor into a university server. I copied it, ran it, and suddenly I was looking at files that belonged to people hundreds of miles away. Professors, students, research data, it was all there, just sitting in front of me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I knew I had crossed a line, but it felt like adrenaline flooding my veins. The older hackers noticed me. They gave me little challenges. Crack this password, bypass that firewall, deface this website. At first I told myself it was all harmless, digital graffiti, just proof that I could do it. But each success pulled me deeper, each dare pushed me further. I wasn't Daniel the Invisible Kid anymore. I was Zero Signal, the one who could break in, the one who could make the system bend. When you're a teenager and no one in real life takes you seriously, power feels intoxicating. I could walk into school on Monday morning, teachers ignoring me, classmates laughing at me, and yet I knew that somewhere, someone out there was running to their IT department, panicked because their system had been breached. And I was the reason. No one in that small town could ever imagine what I was doing at night. It didn't take long before money got involved. Someone in the channel offered me $50 to steal a credit card list. $50 might not sound like much, but to a kid who never had more than a few bucks in his pocket, it was everything. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone. It was just numbers, just data. I didn't see the families who'd wake up to find charges they never made. All I saw was the confirmation that I was finally valuable to someone. From there, things escalated quickly. What started as bragging rights and small jobs turned into bigger, darker requests. Bank logins, personal information, medical records. Some I refused, some I took. Every time I told myself it was the last one, but then another offer would come and I couldn't say no. The scariest part? I was good at it, too good. And when you're good at something in that world, people notice. Some wanted to be my friend, others wanted to use me. A few wanted to own me. I lived a double life. By day, I was just Daniel, failing math tests and trying not to fall asleep in class. By night, I was Zero Signal, breaking into systems I had no business touching, earning money in ways I couldn't explain, living in constant fear that one wrong keystroke would bring the FBI to my door. But the fear never stopped me. If anything, it fed me. Because the truth is, when you've spent your whole life invisible, even fear feels better than being ignored. I thought I was in control. I thought I was untouchable. But the deeper you go into that world, the more you realize the system always notices. And when it finally noticed me, everything I thought I was building began to collapse. There's a point where curiosity stops being curiosity. Mine stopped the moment I realized I could make more money in a single night online than my dad did in a week working construction. I was 17, still technically a kid, but I was sitting on stolen credit cards, bank logins, and enough cash flowing through PayPal accounts to buy whatever I wanted. The first time I bought something with stolen money, it was just a pair of sneakers. I told myself it was harmless, that Nike would never miss it. But soon it was laptops, phones, hardware I could flip for real cash. My bedroom looked like a tech warehouse. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. All of it bought with other people's lives. And the craziest part? Nobody suspected me. My parents thought I was a loner glued to his computer, maybe addicted to video games. My teachers thought I was just wasting my potential. No one imagined I was laundering money through digital wallets, hiding my tracks with proxy servers, erasing logs before sunrise. But paranoia became my shadow. Every time a car slowed down in front of our house, I thought it was law enforcement. Every time my mom checked the mail, I worried she'd open an envelope with my name on it and see evidence of things I couldn't explain. I couldn't sleep unless I had 3 VPNs running and a burner laptop ready to smash if someone knocked on the door. The double life was exhausting. In the morning, I'd sit through history class, my head on the desk, while my mind replayed what I'd done the night before. Breaching firewalls, dumping databases, selling information on hidden forums. In the evening, I'd eat dinner with my family like nothing was happening. While on my phone, I was negotiating prices for stolen data. There were moments I wanted to stop. The fear was suffocating. My heart would race when I read news articles about hackers getting arrested. Their faces splashed across TV screens, their real names exposed. I'd imagine my own face up there, my parents crying, my whole town pointing fingers. I swore to myself I'd quit, delete everything, walk away. But then another job would come, another payout, and the hunger would win again. I told myself I was different. I wasn't like the others. I wasn't hacking to hurt people. I was just surviving, just proving I mattered. But that was a lie. Deep down, I knew I had crossed into a place where survival and destruction looked the same. One night, I hacked into a small hospital's network. I didn't go there to steal medicine or ruin lives. I just wanted to see if I could. Within minutes, I was looking at patient records, names, diagnoses, prescriptions, real people. I remember staring at the screen, realizing the power I had in my hands. If I deleted files, patients could lose their treatments. If I altered prescriptions, people could die. My stomach dropped. I logged out and swore I'd never touch something like that again, but the damage was already done. Because once you see what's possible, you can't unsee it. By then, I was known in the underground. Zero Signal wasn't just a curious kid anymore. He was someone people hired, someone people feared. With that reputation came enemies, rival hackers who wanted to expose me, criminals who wanted to own me, people who sent threats to my inbox, saying they knew where I lived. I stopped using my real name online. I stopped trusting anyone, even the so-called friends I had made in the hacker world. My biggest fear wasn't prison, it was exposure. The idea that my mask would slip, that Daniel and Zero Signal would collide, and everyone would finally see the truth. That fear ate at me every day, and yet I couldn't stop. Because at the same time, I had never felt more powerful. That's the twisted part about living a double life. You're terrified every second, but you're addicted to the fear. The fear becomes proof that you're alive, proof that you're important. And in my mind, anything was better than going back to being invisible. But fear and power never last. The system is always watching. And when it finally turned its gaze on me, my whole world started to unravel. I used to believe I was too careful to be caught. Every keystroke routed through proxies, every file wiped clean, every device encrypted. I thought I was smarter than the system. But the truth? The system never forgets. I was 19 when the knock came. It was early morning before sunrise. I was half asleep, the hum of my laptop still filling the room. At first, I thought it was my mom knocking to wake me up. Then the door shook again, louder, harder. A voice boomed, "Federal agents!" "Open the door!" My heart stopped. Before I could even process it, the door crashed open. Agents in dark jackets stormed in, shouting, pointing guns, pushing me to the floor. My mom screamed from the hallway. My little sister cried. All I could think was, it's over. They dragged me out in handcuffs, past my neighbors who stood in their pajamas, staring as if I was some kind of monster. I had lived my life hiding behind a screen, but now there was nowhere to hide. Daniel was Zero Signal, and the world finally knew. The trial was a blur. Words like wire fraud, identity theft, unauthorized access. I sat there, barely 20 years old, while prosecutors painted me as some cyber criminal mastermind. The defense tried to argue I was just a kid who got lost in code. But the evidence was overwhelming. Chat logs, bank records, server traces. Every ghost I thought I had erased came back to haunt me. When the judge sentenced me to 3 years in federal prison, I felt my stomach collapse. 3 years doesn't sound like much, but when you're barely an adult, it feels like forever. And in prison, time isn't just measured in days, it's measured in survival. Prison was a different world. The first thing you learn, there's no keyboard, no screen to hide behind. You're just flesh and blood. I went from being feared online to being nobody in a concrete cell. My skills meant nothing there. No one cared about firewalls or zero-day exploits. All that mattered was who you knew and whether you could stand your ground. The first few weeks I barely spoke. I kept my head down, tried to stay invisible again, like when I was a kid. But invisibility in prison can get you hurt. So I adapted. I listened more than I talked. I traded favors, helping guys write letters to their families, teaching others how to use the prison library computers for legal research. Slowly, I found a way to survive. But nights were the hardest. Lying on a thin mattress, the sound of metal doors clanging, I replayed every decision that brought me there. I thought about the families whose bank accounts I emptied, the people whose data I sold, the trust I shattered. I thought about my mom, who sat in the courtroom with tears running down her face, whispering that she didn't recognize her son anymore. Prison strips you down to nothing. It forces you to confront the person you really are, not the mask you built online. For me, that meant facing the reality that I wasn't a misunderstood genius. I was a criminal, and every time I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone, I was lying. I served 31 months. 31 months of concrete walls, cold mornings, and the constant reminder that I had destroyed the one thing I always wanted: my freedom. When I finally walked out, the sun felt unreal. The world had moved on without me. Technology had advanced. Old friends had disappeared. My family looked at me like I was a stranger. I was free, but I wasn't the same. And freedom, I realized, isn't just walking out of a cell. It's learning how not to build another one around yourself. When people ask me now if it was worth it, I don't hesitate. No. Nothing I gained in those years, money, reputation, power, was worth the cost. Because the truth is, I lost more than I ever stole. I lost trust. I lost years of my life. I lost the chance to just be a kid. I used to think hacking made me powerful. But real power isn't breaking into systems. Real power is facing yourself without a mask, without a fake name, without hiding behind a screen. And that's the one thing I ran from my whole life. I regret the harm I caused. The strangers whose credit cards I drained. The patients whose medical data I exposed, the parents who had to explain to their kids why their savings were gone. Back then, they were just numbers on a screen. Now I know they were people, families, lives, and the weight of that sits on me every day. I regret what I did to my own family too. My mom, who still flinches when she hears a knock at the door. My little sister, who had to watch me taken away in handcuffs. My dad, who never said much, but whose silence after my arrest was louder than any words. If you're watching this, and you're a kid like I was, lonely, invisible, desperate to matter, listen to me. The screen won't save you. The rush won't last. The power you think you're holding is an illusion, and sooner or later it will collapse on top of you. Find something real. Find someone who sees you for who you are before you start building masks that you can't take off. And if you're already deep in it, already hacking, already lying to everyone around you, know that it's not too late. You can walk away. It'll be hard, harder than you think, because the fear and the thrill are addictive. But you can still choose a different ending than the one I lived. Today, I'm trying to rebuild. I work small jobs in IT. I volunteer teaching kids how to code the right way. Every time I sit in front of a computer now, I remind myself that the same skills I once used to break can also be used to build. I'm not proud of who I was, but I'm not running from it anymore either. This isn't a redemption story with a happy ending tied in a bow. I'm still haunted by what I did. I still wake up some nights thinking I hear a knock at the door. But telling this story is part of my healing. Because if even one person hears it and decides not to make the choices I made, then maybe the pain meant something. So here I am, Daniel. Not zero signal, just me. For the first time, I'm not hiding. And maybe that's what freedom really is.